My name is Jasmine. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Deborah, and my full name as an author is Deborah Lee Rose. So we're here today at Reading is Fundamental, surrounded by books, which makes us all so happy. And we're going to talk about my newest book, which is called Scientists Get Dressed. And we're also going to talk about the book that came before that helped inspire it, called Beauty and the Beak. And let's start with your questions.
Okay, so my first question is, who do you look up to as an author?
When I saw this question, I really had to think about it because I look up to different people as an author. I look up to other authors because they inspire me, but I really look up to scientists that I work with, especially scientists that I work with on books, because they are doing the hands-on hard work that I'm writing about. So I have tremendous respect for all the scientists that I know, and especially the ones who've helped me. I really appreciate what they do.
Best.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Did you meet any other scientists you wrote about?
I have definitely met many of the scientists I've written about, but not all. So let me tell you a little bit about whom I've met and whom I haven't. So this is a picture of Jane Veltkamp. She and I wrote Beauty and the Beak together. And I have been to Idaho to meet her and to meet Beauty, the eagle. And I've even been in Beauty's aviary where she lives. And it was very important for me to go there and see them because I wanted to feel what it was like to be near Beauty because I was writing a book about her. And I wanted to see Janie in action doing what she does, and what she does is amazing. She takes care of all kinds of injured and sick birds of prey, eagles, hawks, owls, ospreys. And so that was a big, big trip for me. But sometimes I can't get to meet every scientist because sometimes they are like in Antarctica and not everybody can go to Antarctica. Sometimes the scientists are very far down below the ocean. Sometimes the scientists did their work in the past at a time when I could not be there. So I have to use my imagination all the time to write about the work of scientists, especially if I can't meet them and spend time with them. But I really try to imagine or to learn all about what they do. Let's see if I can find another picture. Here's a picture of a beekeeper, and I'm a little scared of bees, so I wasn't right near this scientist, but I talked to him for a very long time on the telephone. I talked to scientists on the telephone. I talk to them by email. I talk to them by Skype. I see their faces, and when I can go and see them, I do that too.
Which of the books that you have written are your favorite?
Okay. Whenever I get asked this question, especially at schools, I usually say that my favorite book is the one I haven't done yet, the one I haven't finished, the one that I'm working on. But I can tell you that working on Scientists Get Dressed has been one of my all-time favorite experiences because there were so many different scientists to learn about and to talk to, and I learned things I've never known before. So it reminded me, I've been a science writer a very long time, and it reminded me that I really love writing books about scientists and learning about all the different things that scientists do. Let me take a minute to show you a couple more pictures. So here's a picture that shows something I never knew. This is a picture of a volcanologist. She studies volcanoes, and she is standing on lava that has already flowed, and she is trying to take a sample of hot lava. And that is a really hard job, and she has to wear very special clothing made of cotton so that it will not melt when she is near heat. So every scientist that I learned about for this book, not only did I have to learn about what they do, but what they wear. So that was one example. A completely different example is this picture of a marine biologist. I hope everybody out there can see this. And this person is not near heat. He's underwater. It's kind of warm water. But he has to decide what to wear because he's dealing with the biggest fish in the sea called a whale shark. And he's wearing a snorkel, and he's wearing a face mask, and he's wearing flippers so that he can move through the water very easily. But he is not wearing a big scuba tank with air because he does not want to dive fast. If he dives too fast to follow the whale shark, he could get air bubbles in his blood. So he is staying near the surface. So this book is all about really important decisions that scientists make about what they wear so that they can be safe while they're doing their job.
What is your writing process?
Okay, so we're going to give this a little more time to talk about, and you can ask me extra questions about this because there are lots of parts to it. Writing is one of the most fun things that I have ever done in my life, but it's also one of the hardest things I've ever done. Some days I get ideas that come so fast, I can barely write them down. Other days, I'm waiting and tapping my fingers and getting up and getting down and getting drinks of water and getting chocolate and doing everything except writing because I might be having trouble getting an idea. But my process has a lot of different parts. Would you like to ask me about some parts of it that you think, like when you write something, what is one of the first things that you think about when you're writing? And I'll tell you how I think about it.
When I'm writing, the first thoughts I think about is like, what am I going to write about? And stuff like, since I like STEM, so that, like, if I'm writing, I would think of, could this be related to STEM? Could that be related to anything, any part of STEM? Mm-hmm. So that when I write about it, I could, like, for example, like, I will write about, like, inventions I would want to make. I would have to think of what is going to be a part of this invention and what would it look like and stuff like that.
Okay, that's fantastic because that's what I do too. But sometimes I can't go on the adventure. So part of my process is, how do I put the adventure in a book so that any kid in the world can have the adventure even if they can't go there? Because not everybody can go diving with a whale shark, okay? And when I was growing up and I lived in Philadelphia and I didn't get to travel a lot, but I could imagine going on adventures, and my adventures were in books. So now that I'm a writer, I have to think about how would I do the adventure and how can I write about it? So one of the ways I decided to write about adventures in this book was to get amazing pictures of scientists doing things that I had never imagined. Like, this is a picture of a turtle scientist rescuing a turtle. Why did she have to rescue the turtle? Because the water got too cold and the turtle was starting to freeze. But part of her adventure is just two parts. She goes into a boat, she goes out into the water and gets the turtles, but she also has to carry them. And when you're walking across really muddy beaches, you have to have the right footwear. So in this picture, I wanted to show that just to get the turtle from the water to wherever they're going to take care of it, she needed to have very special mud boots. This is an adventure that I probably can't do because it's on a glacier in some part of the world that's really cold, colder than I have ever been. And this scientist who studies how ice and snow form sometimes has to wear 4 mittens at one time to do his work. So his adventure is really difficult in order to do STEM. He is looking at the science of how people understand snow and ice so that they can make sure that people are safe when they go, like, on big mountains or even when they go skiing, or even if they go hiking when it's really snowy. But he has to have incredibly special clothing. And he told me that sometimes in the morning his clothing is so cold and so frozen, it feels like a coat of armor. So I had to get all of that into the book. But because I was using photographs, I didn't want to have too many words. I wanted the picture to tell a big part of the story. So in this book, we have all kinds of pictures telling different scientist stories. So my process is, how do I show the adventure as well as tell it in words? Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, what about you? When you have to write something, how do you think about what you're going to write?
I just look for stuff around the house, and then I just put it into a book.
That is another thing that I do. Not every book I write is about a big adventure. Some of it is about things that are right in front of me. One book that I wrote, which is very silly, is called The Spelling Bee Before Recess. And it's about a spelling bee. And what I had to have in front of me were words. And I had a lot of words in my house because I have dictionaries and lots of books with words. But for this book, I had to find extra words. So I used my computer a lot for research. And I went on the computer and I looked up hundreds of words that I love. Words that were funny, words that weren't funny. But it was just like looking around my house, except I went looking around my house for words. And I found all the words and I put them into the story as part of the spelling bee. So when you read that book, you'll see the kinds of words that I like, and I had to put them all together. It was almost like baking a cake with lots of different ingredients. And in some ways, writing a book is a lot like baking a cake, because you have, in a cake, you have, what do you have in a cake? What are some of the things that you have in baking a cake?
We have flour, we have eggs, milk,
butter, sugar, chocolate chips. I'm a chocolate chip fan. So in making a book, I have to have words and pictures and sentences and parts of sentences, and sometimes I have to have rhymes, and sometimes not rhymes, and sometimes I have to have pictures that are drawn. So I'm working with all different pieces, and to me it feels like baking. And I do a lot of stirring, and then I do a lot of tasting, and if it doesn't taste exactly the way I want it, then sometimes I have to add more. And I especially love to add chocolate chips, more chocolate chips. So in my books, words are my chocolate chips. Very special words. They're like my chocolate chips.
What was the most important part of that experience for you?
I think we're talking about when I was working on Beauty and the Beak. So let me just finish one thing about process, and then I'll go right into that. So part of my writing process, you said, was how to decide what to write. Remember you said that just a few minutes ago? Okay. So there are lots of stories that I could write, but I don't want to write all of them. I want to write a story that grabs me or makes me laugh or cry or feel happy or want to tell somebody else the story. So it takes me a while sometimes to know what story I want to tell. But when it came to Beauty and the Beak, I knew immediately that I wanted to tell this story because it was a story of hope. Not only was the story about a bird that was harmed, but about a bird that was helped. So in this case, I made the decision that I was going to tell this story because I wanted kids everywhere to understand that this bird and the people who helped this bird were helped by hope. They were also helped by STEM, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Okay, so the story of Beauty, which was around before I knew about it because of Janie, the scientist who helped her, is a story about a wild eagle. We never would have known about her. We never would have seen her. She just lived in the wild in Alaska. But someone shot her in the beak. We will never know who it was. We don't know where they are. We don't know where the beak is because she was in the forest. But Beauty was a very strong eagle. And even though she got injured, she flew to where there were humans. She was starving because she couldn't hunt. So she went to a garbage dump and she was pecking at food, which is not what an eagle should do. Eagles don't peck. They rip with their beak, but she had no beak. So when she was at the garbage dump, she was rescued by a policeman, and then Janie, my friend now, came into the picture because Janie is an eagle expert. She takes care of all kinds of injured birds. And the reason this is important to answering your question is because I could have written the book just about Janie and about Beauty, but instead Janie and I decided to write the book together. Janie knows everything about eagles, and I know a lot about writing books. So together, we decided to write the book. We had to decide not only what story to tell, but exactly how to tell it. Did we want to only write the story about Beauty after she came into human hands? No, we decided to tell her story from the day she was born, from the minute that she cracked out of the egg, because it's a beautiful part of her story, and it's a part of every eagle's story. So we started from the beginning, and then we worked our way through until she was shot. Part of the story about all eagles is that they almost disappeared from the United States because of a chemical called DDT that made their eggs crack. So bald eagles in America today are here because scientists used their STEM knowledge to help bring them back. So they're all over this country, and you can see them around Washington or Virginia, and we can see them in Michigan and California. So this book is for kids everywhere. But Beauty was such a special story because she was injured. That's where the science began. What would you like to know about the science of Beauty's story? How it played into the story? What would you really like to know?
I would like to know if after Beauty got her beak replaced, was she able to open it and move with it?
That is a fantastic question, because when engineers and teams like Janie, who's an eagle specialist, and the engineer, when they work on a problem like this, they don't want it to just look good, although it does look good. It's even the right color. I forgot, I brought a beak with me to show, and it's in my bag. Anyway, I brought the beak to show you. It's inside the zipper compartment, in a special inside zipper compartment. But when they made the beak, it had to work. So after they got it onto her face and they made sure that the glue, they used dentist glue, they made sure it was on, they had to test it. They decided not to test it. It's way deep inside. They decided not to test it by having her eat, because they were afraid it might tear off too easily. So they had her take a drink of water. And when she took the drink of water, this is what I tell kids at schools. You can even put it right over here. Oh, no, okay. I tell kids at schools, if you try to take a drink of water and you don't close your mouth, you will look really silly, because you will be going, oh, and you can't swallow. You have to close your mouth. Well, eagles do too. So she scooped up some water. She closed that beak. You asked if it closed. It really closed. She threw her head back and she swallowed. So they knew it could work for something really important. But they never gave her like a fish to rip, because they just weren't sure if it could work that well. And she wasn't going back into the wild, so she didn't have to be able to rip. She can never go back into the wild because she's been with humans for too much time now. And another thing happened. The beak is off now because her real beak is growing back. Is that incredible? So you wanted to know, did it work? Yes, it worked. But it cannot work enough for her to go back into the wild. Someday, a scientist might be able to figure out how to make it work well. You like STEM. What else would you like to know about the science of what went in this story? And then we're going to go back to the scientists get dressed, because beauty's in that book too.
I would like to know, does Beauty's fur, what's it called?
Her feathers.
Does Beauty's feathers or any other color but off-white and brown?
Okay. When she was very young, she had soft, what we call down, and it was grayish. But as an eagle grows up, it changes its color, and they know it's an adult when it gets its white head. So when they met Beauty, they knew she was 4 years old because her head was white. We're trying to find the beak. It might be in my purse. Anyway, even if we don't have the beak to show, you can find information about the beak, and any school that wants to print the beak, we can make the STL file available. Janie takes care of all that. So schools are now using 3D printers. Okay. So about the feathers. Her feathers are very, very special. Her feathers start out in long tubes, and they have to be unrolled. She needs her beak to do that. So when her beak was shot off, she could not take care of herself, not only for feeding, but for opening up her feathers. So Janie has to do that work for her. A beak is used for everything. If she had a baby eagle, she would use her beak to move it around, to be protected, and to give it food. So the loss of that beak meant everything to that bird. Now, I said that there was a reason that there's a connection between the two books. So Janie, to take care of Beauty, wears big gloves, like the biggest gloves I've ever seen. And I'm going to find a picture. Here we go. This is Jane Veltkamp holding Beauty. And these gloves are lined with something very special called Kevlar, which is stronger and lighter than steel, because she does not want an eagle's talons, that's the claws, to hurt her. So Janie always protects herself with gloves and sometimes with a big jacket to protect herself from beaks, but Beauty didn't have a beak here. So what else would you like to know about how Janie has to get dressed? Because that's a big part of her job, and it's a big part of all the jobs of the scientists in Scientists Get Dressed. What do you think of when you think of a scientist getting dressed? What's the first thing that you think of?
The first thing that I actually think of is what are they actually going to wear? For example, for like scientists like Mae Jemison, they might wear something different than Jane.
Yes, Mae Jemison is an astronaut. She has to wear completely different clothing than Janie Veltkamp. And what's the first thing that comes into your mind when you think about what scientists might wear?
The first thing I think about what scientists might wear are, like, do they have to wear thick clothes or like thin clothes with certain things they're doing?
These are both fantastic questions. They're both correct. They have to think about what they're wearing for where they're going, like if they're going under the ocean or on a glacier or in space or to handle birds. They have to think about what kind of protection do they need. Do they need really light clothing because they're going to be like in the jungle where it's super hot and you don't want to wear a parka? Are you going to be on a mountain where it's super cold? In space, they have to think about hot and cold. Because when a scientist who's an astronaut goes on a spacewalk today and they're outside the spaceship, it's extremely cold, so they have to have a suit to protect them. But the sun is extremely hot, so they have to have a cooling system under their white suit. And their hands can get cold, so they have fingertip warmers in their gloves. So I think gloves that scientists wear are really cool, and I made up a whole STEM activity that we put in the new book that gives you a chance to try on different gloves and see how hard it is or how easy it is to do something that a scientist might have to do, like pick something up or put something together, or even something as simple as opening a bottle of water. If I'm wearing like a laboratory glove and I can move my hand really well, I can open that bottle of water, no problem. But if I'm wearing mittens, 4 pairs of mittens, how am I going to open that bottle? So what scientists wear makes them have to think about their equipment. What equipment can they use with the kind of clothing that they're wearing? Astronauts, when they go out on their spacewalk, right on their sleeve, they might even have instructions on a booklet attached to their sleeve so that they can just go like this and read what they have to do. Or if they wanted to read a novel, but I don't think they're going to read a novel when they're on a spacewalk, but they'll read a novel when they're inside the space station. And inside the space station, they can wear any clothing they want because it's just like sitting in this room. It's all made so that they can just feel like they're comfortable and they're not cold or hot or anything like that. These are great questions. What's your next question? Why don't you go next?
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a scientist?
I'm not a scientist. So scientists might give different suggestions than I would give, but from what I know, and my husband's a scientist, and my friends, all these scientists have told me about when they were younger. One thing they all said is that they loved to look really closely at things. Like they would turn up over rocks to see the worms underneath. Or they would go to a science museum and they would try the exhibits. What were you going to say? Yeah, well, for some people worms are yuck, but for some people worms are everything. You might have a different kind of science that you like to do, like the science of baking. That's a whole science. Or the science of building skyscrapers. There's every kind of science. But all scientists and engineers think about how things work and what makes them work and what makes them not work. So when you're looking at the world around you, and even when you're reading books, you can think about, are the characters doing things that really work, or would it not really work? And if you go to a museum where it's all about science, you can try stuff you've never tried before. And especially things that you do with your hands, touching, it helps your brain learn even more than just reading. So my suggestion for anybody who wants to be a scientist is get out and try new things. And my niece, who inspired this whole book, she told me that she learned about science by walking around her school and seeing what was going on in the grass around her school and in some trees right near her school. And all of a sudden, she realized there was so much that she didn't even know, and she wanted to know it. And I forgot to tell you how I wrote the book. You asked me, I think, where do I get my ideas? Sometimes I get them when I'm not expecting it. I was visiting with my family, and my grandniece is younger than you, and she wanted to show me a picture of her mom. Let me see if I have that picture of her mom right here. Her mom is a water chemist, and I knew that. But I didn't know anything else about what she did. And when her daughter showed me this picture of her, she's in a frozen stream, and she's wearing clothing called chest waders that keep her dry and warm. I said, wow, that's what your mother does? I didn't even know. And I said, I promise you, I'm going to put that in a book. But I had no idea how I was going to put it in the book. So I had to really, really think about, what am I going to do for this book? So I had to go looking for other scientists to see how they got dressed, and that's when I looked at Janie and how she got dressed, and I looked at the glacier scientist, the glaciologist, now he got dressed, and I looked at a scientist who goes high in the forest and how she gets dressed. She has to wear a harness that pulls her up, and when she is not in the forest, she uses a wheelchair. So she had to learn how to get into the harness and how to pull herself up. So she wears gloves to keep her hands from getting, too roughed up. And then I found a picture of panda scientists, and they have to get dressed up in costume. Not just because it's Halloween. It's not Halloween at all. They get dressed up because that baby panda does not need to know that there are people helping it. They want that panda to think it's being helped by other pandas, so that the baby will not expect people to help it when it's bigger. And that way, the panda can go back into the wild. And I just loved that picture, and I said, I have to put that in the book. And all these other pictures of scientists who wear so many different things. So that's how that book idea came to be. And then the scientists said, wow, we really want to be in your book. And so they gave me pictures of what they did.
So nice.
Okay? What else do you have in your list?
What did you like most about writing the book Scientists Get Dressed?
Okay. I had to look at hundreds of photographs, and I learned from every photograph. And then I had to figure out which ones I could use and which ones I couldn't use, and how I was going to write about them. And I mostly loved talking to the scientists, because sometimes when you're writing, you're kind of by yourself. Not all the time. I mean, sometimes I'm talking to lots of people. But in writing this book, I got to speak with people all over the world. Australia, England, China. China, I was using email. But I've dealt with people from Australia before, people all over the country. So it makes me feel like I'm traveling, even when I'm not traveling. And a lot of kids can't travel. They live where they live. And when they grow up, they might get to travel more. But right now, they're in their neighborhood or they're in their library. And I wanted them to have that experience like me. So I did not travel for this book. I brought the parts of the world to me. Now, I noticed on your list, on your book, on your list of questions that you said, what is my favorite book ever, right? Okay, so my favorite book ever happens to be a favorite book for a lot of people, and it's called Charlotte's Web. There's a very special reason it's my favorite. I learned about it when I was younger than you, when it was first published, and the librarian at our school read it to us, and she taught us to handle books with great respect, and I never forgot that. But I read it again when I was a grown-up, and I was a writer, and I discovered that the character of Charlotte is not just a spider. She is a writer. She uses words that she makes in her web to do something really special. Do you remember what she does with her words? She has a friend who's a pig, right? And what's going to happen to that pig in the story? Remember that part of the story? They're going to turn the pig into bacon. And the pig is very afraid. But Charlotte says, I'm going to save your life. And how does she do that? With her words. Because she doesn't have any tools. She's just a spider. But she writes words in her web. And she uses only 5 words. Some pig, terrific, radiant, that's my favorite, and humble. Humble means low and close to the ground, which I only learned from the book. She gives a lot of meaning. But when she writes those words in the web, all the people get so excited. And they say, it's a miracle, and this is the best pig we've ever had. And they clean the pig up, and they take the pig to the county fair, and the pig becomes famous. And so nobody wants to hurt the pig. They want to keep the pig forever, because everybody wants to see the pig. And that's all because of her words. And she does other things that are like me. If her word in the web gets messed up by a fly, she fixes it. Well, I fix my words, like I erase and I write new words, or I use my computer to, change a word. And she thinks a really long time at night when it's quiet, and she gets her ideas, and she works out her ideas, and then she loves to write her words so that in the morning they will be covered with the dew that sparkles in the sunlight. And to me, that's the same as making a beautiful book. So I want my books to be as beautiful and exciting as I can make them, and that takes illustrators and photographs. So I think I'm kind of like Charlotte, and I like to use words because they're powerful. When I use my words to talk to you or to write in a book for other kids to read, my words can make you laugh or make you cry, like in the story of Beauty, or make you feel brave enough to do something important and to take an action, like to save the environment. Or my words can just make you feel calm or happy, or know that something good can happen in the world, like an eagle can be rescued even after it was shot. So I use my words to do good things in the world. And I don't always know what will happen when someone reads my words, but I know that I will inspire someone to do something really good. And that's why I keep writing books, even on the days when it's really hard. So tell me a little bit about when you write. What's your favorite way to write? Do you like to write funny things or serious things? What do you like?
I kind of like to write everything, but I mostly like to write funny things. Like, I would consider myself as like a funny person. Like, you can be your friend, your good side, stuff like that. And it's easier for me to write funny things because it's hard to come up with something serious when you're a funny person. So like, if you're a serious person and you try to come up with something funny, it's super, super hard.
That's for me.
You're being serious, but it's kind of hard. But if you're a funny person, it's easier to come up with funny things because it's like you're already there. It's like
That's great.
You already came up with it, and then things keep popping up in your head over and over and over until it's like you fill all these pages full of funny things.
Do you like to also draw when you make funny stories, or?
Sometimes I like to draw like inventions. Like if it's like if I consider it as a funny invention, that I draw it and I put a bunch of like sometimes like a bunch of like faces, for example, like a smiley face, stuff like that, all around it, make it look funny, even though it might look all normal. Then if I put like faces around it, it makes it look totally different.
And humor is a great way to teach about things that are serious or complicated. That's fantastic. And what do you like to write about? Every single thing? Like, do you like to write about people? What do you like to write about people?
I make up people, and I usually write about how they live
And what they do? And how about how they feel? Write about how they feel? Yeah, and that's not easy. Not everybody can do that. Some people can write about animals. It's easier for them. To write about people is a really important skill, because when you write about people, you are sharing things that other people can understand. Because we all want to know about each other better so that we can get along better, but sometimes people don't know enough about other people. So if you write about all different kinds of people, we can share. That's kind of what I tried to do. Tried to do in writing Scientists Get Dressed. I wasn't exactly writing about how they feel or how they live every day, but I was writing about a really important part of their life, which is the work that they do and why they do it and how they do it. And writing about Janie, whom I've been working with now for over 4 years, I've learned a lot about why she does what she does, because the environment is being affected by a lot of things, and animals in the environment are being affected. So she is rescuing and helping injured birds of prey and sick birds of prey, and whenever she can, she sends them back into the wild. So in Beauty and the Beak, Beauty can never go back into the wild, but in Scientists Get Dressed, in the part about Janie, I show her working with a falcon, a peregrine falcon, because she trains peregrine falcons to go back into the wild so that we always have enough of them. If we don't have enough of certain animals, then the environment will get all out of balance, and that affects our lives too. Like if we don't have enough honeybees in the world, like the scientist in this book is working on, then we won't have enough food, because honeybees pollinate plants that grow fruits and nuts and all kinds of things that we eat. So there's a lot of information in this book about why scientists do what they do. Now let me ask you, we're almost done, but I want to ask you what kinds of books you love to read. Because I love to read everything. I even read cereal boxes if I don't have something else to read. What do you like to read most? I want you both to tell me.
Okay, but sometimes if I can't find something to read, I'll just like you, I will literally get like a cereal box or anything. Like sometimes I'll read some cans, but I mostly like to read like I don't know what it's called, but like they're fiction books, but they're fantasy books, but they're like pretty funny.
Funny
like,
fantasy, that's cool combination.
Sometimes, even though it's rarely, but sometimes I like to read history books.
I mean true history or like historical fiction?
Yeah, historical fiction.
Me too. I love historical.
And I also like to read things that have mostly pictures. That means that you can mostly comic books. But like because like if there's no words in an entire book, that means that you can come up with words to make it seem like it has words. Like you can use your imagination.
I'm going to have you answer in 1 minute, but I just want to say imagination is the single most important thing in being a writer. Even if you are writing about facts, your imagination helps you tell the factual story in a more exciting way. So imagination, however you use it, is absolutely great. What are your favorite books? I know one kind because you were reading it before we started. What were you reading it before we started?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. And what else? What else?
I like to read fantasy and fiction.
Do you like to read series of books too?
Yes.
Yes. I read series all the time because in a series you can follow the characters and they can grow and you're growing at the same time. I love series. I've only written one series in picture books, but maybe one day I'll sit down and write a big series. It's a big job to write a big series because you have to have characters that come alive so that everybody wants to see what's their next adventure. What's their next adventure? Anything else that you haven't asked me yet, even if it wasn't on your list? Something that you thought of just because of what we did today or because you just met me? No more? Okay. And so do you think that you would like to write books when you are grown up too?
Yes.
Would you like to write the kind of books that you like to read?
Probably.
Mm-hmm. And so I just hope you do, because we need all the good books that we can get. Okay? Will you promise me that you won't lose sight of that? And whatever you choose to write about, even if it's not what you said today, but it's something different, I hope you write books. And I'll read them. And you'll tell me that you wrote them and I'll go and find them, okay?
Okay.
Okay. It was so wonderful to be with you today and talk about writing. and we'll have lots more information on the website. And on my website, which is deborahleerose.com, we will get pictures of the beak and lots more stuff and information for everyone to use. Bye. Want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.